In life, many people fear loneliness, and therefore always try to blend in with the crowd. But the ancients believed that only those who dare to walk alone have the opportunity to achieve the greatest value in life. Watch the entire video to understand why those who dare to be alone often have more precious destinies. And don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. Humans are inherently connection-seeking creatures. We fear being left behind, the feeling of being misunderstood, and the silences of being alone with ourselves. Therefore, many choose to live, think, and act like the majority to find a sense of security. However, ancient sages viewed solitude from a different perspective. They believed that only by separating oneself from the external noise could one truly look inward and discover their own path. Those who dare to be alone are not social shunners, but rather individuals with the strength of character to resist fleeting trends. In a crowd, we are easily influenced by praise and criticism, by the standards of success set by others. But when alone, we are forced to ask ourselves what we truly want, what makes us happy, and what values are most important. It is precisely these seemingly empty moments that form the foundation for profound personal growth. Ancient people believed that those who could endure solitude were often those with strong inner selves. They didn't need constant external validation to feel valued. They knew how to learn, reflect, and adjust on their own. While many were busy seeking attention, they quietly honed their abilities and qualities. By the time opportunities arose, they were strong enough to seize them. Solitude is also a challenge that helps people filter out unsuitable relationships. When we no longer try to please everyone, we realize who truly values us. Relationships that survive after a period of solitude are often more genuine and lasting. As a result, the quality of our mental well-being is also enhanced. Furthermore, those who dare to go it alone often have a broader vision. They are not limited by the fear of being different. It is precisely this difference that sometimes opens up new paths and achievements that the majority have never even considered. History has proven that many people who have achieved great success have gone through periods of solitude when their ideas were not yet supported by anyone. Therefore, instead of fearing loneliness, learn to accept and embrace it. Loneliness is not a punishment, but can be a gift that helps us understand ourselves and build a solid foundation for the future. When we are strong enough to walk alone, we will also be confident enough to walk alongside others with inner peace and confidence. 1. Loneliness is not about being abandoned, but about the ability to stand on your own 2 feet. In the minds of many, loneliness is often associated with feelings of sadness, emptiness, and emotional deprivation. People fear evenings without anyone to talk to, and moments without someone to share with. Therefore, many try to fill these voids with the noise of crowds, constant social gatherings, social media, and endless conversations. But the more one tries to escape loneliness, the more easily one loses oneself. Ancient people viewed solitude from a completely different perspective. They believed that solitude was an opportunity for inner cultivation. Without external voices influencing us, we are forced to confront our true thoughts. We recognize weaknesses that need improvement, unfulfilled dreams, and even fears that silently control our actions. It is in this stillness that people gradually learn to take responsibility for their own lives. Loneliness is not the same as being abandoned. Abandonment is a passive state where we depend on others to feel valued. Active loneliness, on the other hand, is choosing to stand on our own 2 feet based on our own abilities and beliefs. Those capable of standing on their own 2 feet don't need constant external validation. They understand that their value lies not in the number of people around them, but in their inner qualities. When a person can be alone without feeling insecure, they have entered a new stage of maturity. They are no longer afraid of silence. They know how to use that time to read, reflect, learn, and improve themselves. While many people waste energy chasing attention, those who appreciate solitude quietly accumulate knowledge and experience. In reality, significant turning points in life often occur during periods of solitude. When embarking on a new path, we may not receive immediate support. When pursuing a grand goal, we must accept times when few people understand us. Without sufficient resilience, it's easy to give up simply because of fear of being different. But if we view solitude as an opportunity for self-improvement, we will see it as a necessary preparation period before achieving success. Solitude also helps people build healthy self-esteem. When alone, we learn to comfort and encourage ourselves instead of waiting for others to do so. We understand that happiness doesn't come from always having someone by our side, but from a sense of inner peace. A person with inner stability will not be easily hurt by criticism or indifference from others. Furthermore, the ability to stand on our own 2 feet allows us to enter relationships with an equal footing. When we are not afraid of loneliness, we do not cling or become overly dependent. We choose to stay because of love and respect, not because we are afraid of losing our support system. This is what makes relationships healthier and more sustainable. Those who are strong in solitude are often also those who appreciate genuine companionship. Solitude is also an environment for creativity to flourish. Many great ideas are formed in moments of silence. When not distracted by too many voices around, the intellect has the opportunity to focus and delve deeper. That focus creates a depth of thought that a noisy crowd can hardly provide. Therefore, solitude does not weaken people, but helps them unlock previously untapped potential. Of course, not everyone finds solitude easy. Initially, the feeling of emptiness can be anxiety-inducing. But with patience, one realizes that this solitude is like fertile ground waiting to be sown. Each time one overcomes a period of solitude, one becomes stronger and more confident. One understands that no matter how circumstances change, one can still move forward on one's own. Loneliness, therefore, is not a sign of failure, but rather an expression of inner strength. Those who dare to face loneliness are those who dare to face themselves. When we no longer run away from the feeling of being alone, we no longer fear the vicissitudes of life. We know that the most solid support lies not outside ourselves, but within ourselves. Ultimately, the ability to stand on one's own 2 feet in solitude is the foundation of freedom. Freedom from dependence, from the fear of abandonment, from the pressure to please everyone. When we have that freedom, we live more authentically, more decisively, and more peacefully. And it is this peace of mind that creates a distinctive character, earning the respect and trust of others. Therefore, instead of viewing loneliness as something to be feared, consider it a process of self-improvement. When you can be alone and still maintain inner peace, you possess a quiet but enduring strength. Loneliness is not abandonment, but rather the ability to stand on your own 2 feet, a sign that you have matured and have the inner strength to walk your own path. 2. People who always need a crowd often find it difficult to develop inner strength. In modern life, connecting and communicating has become easier than ever. With just a small device in hand, people can chat, share, and receive feedback almost instantly. This offers many advantages, but at the same time, it has led many people to develop a habit of needing someone nearby to feel secure. When the presence of a crowd becomes the only source of safety, the ability to stand firm on one's own inner strength gradually diminishes. Inner strength is not something that appears naturally, but is formed through a long process of training. It is built from the ability to think for oneself, take responsibility for oneself, overcome difficulties, and regulate emotions. These processes all require moments of quiet reflection, requiring self-contemplation. When a person is constantly surrounded by the voices of the crowd, they rarely have the opportunity to listen to their inner voice. Gradually, they become accustomed to making decisions based on the opinions of others rather than on their own understanding. People who always rely on the crowd are easily influenced by general trends. When everyone praises something, they also see it as good. When the majority criticizes it, they quickly change their opinion. This constant change makes it difficult for thinking to reach depth. A person who doesn't have time for independent reflection will find it hard to form their own value system, instead living only according to the general flow. Living like that may provide a temporary sense of security, but it weakens their ability to make independent decisions at crucial moments in life. Ancient wisdom emphasizes that those who seek success must learn to think alone. Only when there is no surrounding noise can intellect flourish. In moments of quiet reflection, one can examine their actions, recognize mistakes, and adjust their course. Constantly being in a group easily leads to being swept up in the fast pace of life, rarely allowing one to pause and question whether they are on the right or wrong path. This lack of pause is what causes many people to live very busy lives without truly progressing. Another consequence of always needing a crowd is emotional dependence. When one's mood depends on the reactions of others, they become easily swayed. A compliment can excite them excessively, while criticism can demoralize them. Strong inner strength requires the ability to maintain emotional stability even when circumstances change. To achieve this, one must learn to be alone and still feel at peace. If one always needs the presence of others to feel stable, inner strength has little chance of developing. Many people confuse integration with dependence. Integration is the ability to live within a group while maintaining one's own opinions. Dependence is a state of feeling safe only when in a group and disoriented when alone. People with inner strength can communicate very well, but they are also not afraid of periods of separation from the crowd. Conversely, people lacking inner strength often try to fill every void with busyness because they fear facing feelings of emptiness. The process of personal development always requires periods of quiet reflection. When learning a new skill, reading a book, or contemplating life's goals, most of the time is spent in solitude. People who always need company often struggle to maintain focus for long enough on such activities. They are easily drawn into conversations, entertainment, and a constant stream of information. This distraction slows down the accumulation of knowledge and experience, resulting in a disproportionate level of development compared to the time invested. Inner strength is also built through problem solving. When faced with difficulties, if you immediately seek help from others without thinking things through first, your independence will gradually diminish. A crowd can support you, but if you always rely on them, you won't learn to stand on your own 2 feet. Those who take the time to think, experiment, and persistently seek solutions will gradually develop inner confidence. This confidence doesn't depend on praise or external recognition, but stems from the experience of overcoming challenges on their own. It's worth noting that people with strong inner strength often don't need to show off excessively. They don't need to constantly appear to prove their worth, because they understand that true value is created from competence and long-term results. Meanwhile, those who constantly seek attention tend to be persistently self-centered, feeling insecure when not seen or mentioned. This constant pursuit of attention drains energy on superficial things instead of focusing on deeper personal growth. This doesn't mean people should completely isolate themselves from society. People still need friends, family, and cooperation to thrive. However, the difference lies in whether or not one can live independently and remain stable. If one can confidently enter a crowd and remain steadfast upon leaving it, they have begun to build inner strength. Conversely, if one feels anxious when alone, it's a sign that inner strength still needs further development. Cultivating inner strength begins with small things. Take time each day to reflect on what you've done, read in silence, complete a task without constant supervision, or make small decisions for yourself. These seemingly simple actions gradually build self-reliance. As self-reliance increases, the feeling of dependence on others diminishes, and inner confidence gradually emerges. People with strong inner strength often inspire calmness in those around them. They are not easily swept away by collective panic, nor do they hastily change their opinions due to social pressure. This stability makes them a pillar of support in many difficult situations. It's noteworthy that this calmness isn't innate, but rather developed through repeatedly facing solitude and learning to stand firm. Ultimately, crowds can offer support, but they cannot replace inner strength. Only when a person is strong from within can they harness the power of the collective without losing themselves. Therefore, learning to be alone is not about isolating oneself from the world, but about preparing to enter it with a more stable mindset. Those who constantly rely on crowds may feel safe for a short time, but those who cultivate inner strength are the ones who can go far and maintain lasting peace. 3. Spending time alone helps people gain self-awareness. If you've ever felt that moments of solitude have helped you grow, read to the end of this article and share your thoughts so we can all reflect more deeply on the value of silence. In modern life, people rarely truly spend time alone. Even when no one is around, we are constantly bombarded with information, messages, and sounds. This busyness makes us accustomed to reacting quickly, but we forget to reflect deeply. As a result, many people live long lives without ever truly understanding who they are, what they need, and where they are going. Time spent alone, if properly cherished, becomes a precious opportunity to look back on that entire journey. When alone, we no longer have to adjust our words or behavior to suit others. There are no judgmental glances, no pressure to appear certain. In that private space, people can be true to their emotions. We can acknowledge sadness that we previously tried to hide and confront mistakes that we previously avoided. Honesty with oneself is the first step towards maturity. Many people fear being alone because they believe repressed thoughts will surface. But in reality, those thoughts have always existed. Only when we pause do they have a chance to be heard. Silence is like a mirror reflecting our inner selves. We realize what hurts us, what makes us happy, and what is subtly influencing our decisions. Without these moments, it's easy to live by habit without understanding our inner motivations. Being alone also helps us reflect on our relationships. When we are separated from the presence of others, we can more clearly see who truly matters. Some relationships exist only for convenience or habit. Others bring positive energy and genuine understanding. Quiet reflection helps us to distinguish more clearly, thus learning to appreciate what is worthwhile and let go of what is no longer suitable. Spending time alone is also an opportunity to reassess life's purpose. In a crowd, we are easily influenced by society's standards of success. We may chase after what others value without asking ourselves if we truly desire it. When alone, that question becomes clearer. We can ask ourselves what kind of life we want to live, what values are fundamental, and what makes us feel meaningful. These questions, though simple, have a powerful guiding force. Many creative ideas also arise in moments of quiet reflection. When the mind is undistracted, the capacity for deep thinking is unlocked. We can connect disparate experiences into lessons, transforming failures into learning opportunities. This process requires focus and serenity, qualities that noisy crowds struggle to provide. Therefore, those who value alone time often possess depth in their thinking and actions. Being alone also hones the ability to regulate emotions. When there's no one to comfort or encourage you immediately, you learn to calm yourself. You realize that emotions are only temporary states and that you can choose how to react. This ability helps people become more resilient in the face of change. Instead of panicking or relying on external validation, you gradually develop inner stability. Of course, being alone doesn't mean isolating yourself from society. People still need connection and sharing. But the difference lies in the fact that you can return to yourself at any time. Private time is like a place to recharge. After understanding yourself better, you enter relationships with a more proactive and sincere attitude. You no longer seek others to fill a void, but seek companionship based on mutual understanding. Self-discovery is not an easy journey. Sometimes we see weaknesses that disappoint us, but it is this self-awareness that opens up opportunities for change. If we don't recognize our mistakes, we can't correct them. If we don't recognize our true dreams, we can't pursue them. Therefore, time spent alone not only helps us understand ourselves, but also helps us shape our future. When people learn to dedicate time to stillness, they live more slowly but profoundly. They don't rush to follow trends. They listen to their intuition and consider carefully before making decisions. This slowness is not a sign of weakness, but rather an expression of wisdom. As a result, important life choices become more insightful. Ultimately, time spent alone is a gift we give ourselves. It's a time to reconnect with our inner selves, remove masks, and confront the truth. Once we understand ourselves, we'll no longer be easily swayed by circumstances or the words of others. We live more confidently because we know who we are and what we want. If you're experiencing days spent alone, don't immediately view it negatively. Try seeing it as an opportunity to gain a deeper understanding of yourself. And if you find these reflections meaningful, please share this article so that more people can realize the value of quiet moments in their journey of growth. 4. People who dare to go it alone usually have independent thinking. In life, not everyone has the courage to walk their own path when surrounded by countless opposing opinions. Most people feel safer walking with the crowd because when mistakes are made, the responsibility is divided, and when success is achieved, the joy is multiplied. However, those who dare to walk alone accept both the risks and the pressure. This choice helps them develop and nurture independent thinking, a crucial foundation for sustainable growth. Independent thinking isn't about being stubborn or rejecting all advice. It's the ability to think for yourself, analyze, and make decisions based on your own understanding. Independent thinkers know how to listen, but they don't completely depend on the opinions of others. They consider multiple perspectives, compare information, and choose a path that aligns with their own values. To do this, they need quiet time for reflection and a certain degree of detachment from the influence of the crowd. When someone dares to go it alone, they are forced to take responsibility for their own choices. There is no one left to blame or rely on. This responsibility, though heavy, is the best environment for developing character. Every decision becomes a lesson. If right, they understand why they were right. If wrong, they learn how to adjust. This continuous process of self-assessment and improvement is how independent thinking is strengthened over time. Crowds often create invisible pressure. When the majority choose a path, the remaining person easily feels left out if they choose differently. The fear of being judged causes many to abandon their own thoughts in order to conform. But those who dare to go it alone understand that being different isn't always wrong. They accept the initial feeling of solitude to defend their viewpoint. That steadfastness helps them maintain their identity and not be swept away by fleeting trends. Independent thinking is also demonstrated in the ability to ask questions. Instead of passively accepting information, independent thinkers always ask why things happen the way they do, whether there are other perspectives, and whether that perspective truly aligns with their own. These questions broaden their horizons and help them avoid mistakes caused by blind trust. By daring to go it alone, they have more space to think deeply and develop critical thinking skills. Throughout history, many great innovations have originated from individuals who were once considered different. They were dissatisfied with the old ways of doing things and brave enough to experiment with new approaches. If they had simply followed the crowd, those changes might not have happened. This demonstrates that independent thinking not only benefits individuals, but also contributes to societal progress. Those who dare to go it alone sometimes face skepticism, but it is they who open up new paths. Daring to go it alone also helps people understand themselves better. Without the controlling voices of those around them, they are forced to define their core values. They realize what is non-negotiable and what can be flexible. This understanding leads to clear decision-making. Independent thinkers are not easily swayed by praise or criticism because they have their own frame of reference for evaluating issues. However, independent thinking does not mean complete isolation from the group. Truly independent individuals still know how to cooperate and learn. The difference lies in their proactive approach. They can work with others without losing their personal perspective. When necessary, they are ready to defend their opinions with solid reasoning. The combination of independence and cooperation creates sustainable effectiveness. Another benefit of daring to go it alone is a better ability to handle pressure. When people become accustomed to making their own decisions and taking responsibility, they gradually become more resilient. They don't panic in the face of opposition and aren't easily swayed by difficulties. This resilience comes from self-belief. This belief isn't given by others, but built through countless instances of walking and getting back up on their own. In today's modern environment, information spreads rapidly. The opinions of the majority can change in a short time. Without independent thinking, people are easily swept along by collective emotions. Those who dare to go it alone tend to slow down, observe carefully, and think before acting. This caution helps them avoid hasty decisions and maintain long-term stability. Independent thinking also fosters creativity. When not constrained by conventional norms, people have the space to experiment with new ideas. They are not afraid of being considered different because they understand that innovation always begins with difference. As a result, they can find solutions that others haven't thought of. This creativity is a great advantage in any field. Ultimately, those who dare to go it alone tend to mature faster. Each step is the result of self-reflection. Every difficulty is an opportunity to test their beliefs and adjust their thinking. Over time, they build a solid foundation of thinking. When they return to integrate with a group, they carry with them a confidence and depth that not everyone possesses. Walking alone isn't the ultimate goal, but rather a journey of self-improvement. Through these solitary paths, individuals understand their own worth and develop independent thinking. With a solid foundation, they can navigate crowds without losing themselves, collaborate while maintaining their own opinions. And it is this balance that creates the lasting strength of a mature individual. 5. Independent thinking helps them avoid being swept along by the crowd. In social life, people are always strongly influenced by their surroundings. When an opinion is repeated many times, when a trend is supported by many people, we easily believe it to be the right thing to do. Collective consensus brings a sense of security, because when we are with the majority, we face less opposition. However, this very sense of security sometimes causes people to lose their ability to think for themselves, leading to decisions that are not truly right for them. Independent thinking is the ability to observe, analyze, and draw conclusions based on personal understanding. Independent thinkers still listen to others' opinions, but they don't rush to accept them simply because many people say the same thing. They take the time to verify information, consider the context, and compare it to their own values before acting. As a result, they avoid blindly following trends and maintain stability during times of social change. The majority isn't always wrong, but they often react quickly and emotionally. When news spreads rapidly, many people share it without thinking. When a trend emerges, many join simply out of fear of being left behind. In such situations, independent thinkers tend to slow down. They observe more carefully, ask more questions, and only participate when they truly understand the nature of the issue. This slow approach helps them avoid many unnecessary mistakes. A major benefit of independent thinking is the ability to stand firm in one's position. Once they have thought things through, people are not easily swayed by fleeting praise or criticism. They understand that the value of a decision lies not in how many people support it, but in how well it aligns with long-term goals. Therefore, they can persevere on their chosen path even when they initially don't receive widespread support. Independent thinking also helps people develop critical thinking skills. Instead of accepting information unilaterally, they always ask themselves if there are other perspectives, or if the facts are complete. These questions are not intended to negate others, but to seek a more accurate truth. When the habit of questioning is maintained, the intellect gradually becomes sharper, and the ability to evaluate issues becomes more profound. People who lack independent thinking often feel anxious when making decisions alone. They tend to wait for others' opinions to feel secure. This dependence makes them prone to changing their choices whenever they hear a new perspective. Conversely, people with independent thinking accept responsibility for their decisions. They understand that mistakes are inevitable, but each mistake provides a valuable lesson. This willingness to take responsibility helps them mature more quickly. In the workplace, independent thinking helps people come up with creative solutions. When not limited by familiar ways of thinking, they can view problems from different perspectives and find new approaches. Many innovative ideas emerge from those who dare to think differently. If everyone simply repeats old ways of doing things because the majority are doing them, innovation will be very difficult to achieve. Independent thinking also contributes to building inner confidence. When a person becomes accustomed to thinking for themselves and making their own decisions, they gradually trust in their abilities. This confidence doesn't depend on external validation, but comes from real-world experience. As a result, they are not easily swayed by negative feedback. They can listen to constructive criticism to improve, but they don't lose their way simply because of social pressure. An important point is that independent thinking does not mean going against the collective. Independent thinkers can still cooperate very well because they understand the value of collaboration. The difference lies in their proactive approach. They contribute ideas based on their own thoughts, while also being willing to adjust when they find others' arguments more reasonable. As a result, the collaboration becomes effective and constructive. In personal life, independent thinking helps people choose a lifestyle that suits them instead of chasing after common standards. Each person has different circumstances, abilities, and desires. If we only look at the success of others to decide our own path, we can easily feel tired and lost. By knowing how to think independently, we can clearly identify what truly gives meaning to our lives and focus on it. The process of developing independent thinking begins with dedicating time to reflection. When individuals regularly take quiet moments to read, write, and ask themselves questions, the ability to think independently gradually develops. Exposure to diverse sources of knowledge also broadens perspectives, thereby reducing the risk of being overly influenced by a single source of information. Over time, the habit of deep thinking will become a solid foundation for all decisions. Independent thinking also helps people remain calm during chaotic times. When rumors spread quickly or collective emotions run high, many people are prone to acting impulsively. Independent thinkers typically take extra time to verify information before reacting. This helps them avoid rash decisions that could have long-lasting consequences. This calmness makes them a reliable anchor in many difficult situations. Another benefit is the ability to learn continuously. Independent thinkers understand that knowledge is constantly changing and no viewpoint is immutable. Therefore, they are willing to update their understanding and adjust their thinking as needed. This flexibility helps them adapt well to the rapidly changing environment of today's era. They are not stuck in old patterns, but always seek to improve themselves. Ultimately, independent thinking brings inner freedom. When not swept along by the crowd, people can live true to their values. They don't need to chase every trend to feel like they belong. Instead, they choose what truly suits them and persevere. This freedom creates lasting peace because they know that each step stems from a conscious choice. Therefore, independent thinking not only helps people avoid being swept along by the crowd, but also opens the path to sustainable development. When we know how to think with our own intellect, we can listen to the world while still maintaining our individuality. We can cooperate with many people without losing our direction. And most importantly, we can walk through life with inner strength, independent of the ever-changing crowd. 6. Big decisions are often made in silence. If you've ever realized that the most important choices of your life have come about in moments of quiet reflection, read to the end and share your thoughts so that others can ponder the value of silence. Modern life has accustomed people to a fast pace. Information comes in rapid succession, and responses are almost instantaneous. In this flow, many decisions are made hastily, simply to meet the circumstances. However, choices that profoundly impact one's life are rarely made in haste. They usually arise when people have enough time to pause, reflect, and listen to themselves. Silence is not a meaningless void, but a space for thought to flourish. When external noise subsides, the mind begins to reorganize past experiences. Seemingly disjointed things gradually connect into a clearer picture. We see the causes of mistakes, recognize the value of what we have learned, and better understand the right path for the future. This process takes time, and only in silence can it unfold completely. Many people tend to seek advice from too many sources at once when faced with important decisions. Other people's opinions can be helpful, but receiving too much without a moment for reflection can easily lead to confusion. Everyone views an issue from a different perspective, and if we aren't calm enough to listen to our inner voice, it's difficult to discern what truly suits us. Silence allows us to filter the information we receive and select what is necessary. In moments of solitude, people also confront their true emotions more clearly. When no longer swept along by the rhythm of the crowd, we realize what worries us, what gives us confidence, and what is causing us hesitation. Understanding our emotions helps us make wiser decisions, because many wrong choices stem from acting when our minds are still. Stillness is like calm water. Only when the water is still can we see the bottom. Many major turning points in life often begin in such moments of quiet reflection. A person might change careers after a long period of contemplation, decide to end or begin a relationship after understanding their feelings, or choose to pursue a dream they previously lacked the courage to pursue. These decisions don't arise from noisy conversations, but are formed when individuals are calm enough to listen to themselves. Silence also helps us see beyond the present. When caught up in work and daily pressures, we easily focus on immediate benefits and forget about long-term goals. When we pause, we can ask ourselves whether this choice will lead us to where we want to be, and whether we will still be satisfied with today's decision in a few years. Such questions require focus and depth, something that a noisy environment can hardly provide. Another benefit of stillness is its ability to lessen the impact of fleeting emotions. When angry, sad, or overly excited, people are more likely to make impulsive decisions. By taking the time to step back, allowing emotions to settle before acting, we can avoid many regrettable mistakes. Stillness, therefore, not only helps in deeper thinking, but also helps stabilize emotions. It's worth noting that stillness doesn't need to be prolonged. Short but quality periods, such as a few minutes of quiet reflection, an evening with minimal distractions and reading, or a leisurely walk without excessive information, are enough to create space for thinking. When this habit is maintained, the ability to make sound decisions will gradually become a natural reflex. People who regularly dedicate time to quiet reflection tend to be calmer when faced with major choices. They don't rush into decisions due to external pressure, nor are they easily swayed by fleeting opinions. This calmness provides a sense of certainty, allowing them to move forward with greater confidence. Even if the outcome isn't what they hoped for, they understand that their decision was made after careful consideration, and from that, they can learn and move forward. Life will always present moments that demand important choices. In such times, instead of seeking more noise, try finding a moment of quiet. It is in that stillness that many answers will gradually become clearer. And if you believe that major decisions need to be nurtured in a peaceful mind, please share this article so that more people can realize the power of moments of quiet reflection. 7. People who can tolerate solitude tend to be more persistent than others. In the pursuit of any goal, the most difficult stage is often not the beginning, but the period of quiet effort before anyone sees the results. This is when people are most likely to become discouraged. No encouragement, no recognition, no applause. Only the constant repetition of daily effort. Those who cannot tolerate solitude often give up at this stage. Conversely, those who accept and overcome the feeling of being alone are more likely to go further. Loneliness during the process of growing up is almost unavoidable. When you choose a different path, when you set higher than average goals, there will be days when you have to move forward alone. Not everyone understands what you're doing. Not everyone will support you from the start. If your inner strength isn't enough, you'll easily be swayed by the skepticism around you. True perseverance is not just about trying, but about the ability to continue even without constant encouragement. Those who can tolerate solitude can maintain their work pace even when no one is watching. They don't depend on praise for motivation. They understand that true value lies not in fleeting attention, but in long-term results. Therefore, they are willing to quietly accumulate small achievements step by step. When alone, people must confront fatigue and doubt on their own. There is no one to immediately soothe them. Those who can tolerate solitude learn to self-reassure and regulate their emotions. They understand that feelings of discouragement are only temporary. Therefore, they don't rush to give up after a few setbacks. This inner stability is a crucial foundation for perseverance. Many people give up not because of a lack of ability, but because of a lack of resilience during periods of silence. When their efforts don't yield results, they feel they're going in the wrong direction. When no one acknowledges their efforts, they think their attempts are futile. But those accustomed to solitude see things differently. They view that period as a necessary preparation. They believe that all results take time to develop. Solitude also helps people focus better. When not distracted by too many relationships and external activities, energy is channeled into the main goal. This focus makes each hour of work more productive. Over time, small but consistent efforts will make a big difference. Perseverance isn't about leaps and bounds, but about the ability to maintain a steady rhythm over a long period. Those who can tolerate solitude also possess the ability to discipline themselves. Even without supervision, they still do what needs to be done. They understand that personal discipline is more important than external control. This habit of self-management helps them remain independent of circumstances. Regardless of changing environments, they maintain their momentum. Another important point is that people accustomed to solitude are often not afraid of failure. They have experienced being alone many times and learned how to get back up. Therefore, they don't panic too much when they encounter obstacles. Instead of seeking immediate comfort, they focus on self-improvement. This attitude helps them sustain their journey in the long run without being overly overwhelmed by emotions. This doesn't mean that people have to completely isolate themselves from society to be persistent. The difference lies in whether or not they can continue trying, even when no one is around. Those who can tolerate solitude enter a crowd with confidence, but are also ready to step out and continue their own journey. They don't need the constant presence of others to maintain their motivation. Success in any field requires a long period of training. During that time, much of the work takes place in silence. Those who cannot tolerate solitude will find that silence overwhelming. Those who can accept solitude see it as an opportunity for growth. This difference determines who will reach the end of the road. Ultimately, the ability to endure solitude is a form of inner strength. It helps people persevere through challenges, remain calmer under pressure, and be more steadfast in the face of delays in achieving results. When we no longer fear the days spent alone, we no longer fear the long journey ahead. And it is this perseverance that distinguishes those who give up halfway from those who reach their goal. 8. People who can tolerate solitude tend to be more persistent than others. In everyone's journey, there are times when we must walk alone. This could be a period of intense study when no one recognizes our efforts. The challenging days of entrepreneurship when we haven't yet seen results, or the healing period after a traumatic event that no one truly understands. Not everyone is calm enough to navigate these quiet moments. Those unfamiliar with solitude may feel empty, doubtful, and want to give up. Conversely, those who can tolerate solitude tend to be more persistent, because they don't see being alone as something to be feared, but rather as an essential part of growing up. Perseverance isn't just about trying for a few days of enthusiasm. It's the ability to continue when motivation wanes, when praise fades, and when results aren't yet apparent. To achieve this, one needs a strong inner foundation, and that foundation is often forged during periods of solitude. Without constant external encouragement, we are forced to find motivation from within. It is this process of self-encouragement that makes willpower more enduring. People who can tolerate solitude are usually accustomed to confronting their emotions alone. When faced with failure, they don't rush to crowds to escape their sadness. Instead, they accept their disappointment, analyze the causes, and learn from it. As a result, each setback becomes an opportunity for growth. This continuous growth helps them become increasingly resilient and less easily swayed by temporary difficulties. Meanwhile, those who constantly need the presence of others are more dependent on external encouragement. When someone motivates them, they work very hard. But when the attention is gone, they quickly lose motivation. This dependence disrupts the pursuit of goals. Perseverance requires long-term stability, and that stability can only come from inner strength, not from temporary encouragement. Solitude also cultivates the ability to focus. When not caught up in too many relationships and social activities, people have more time to invest in personal goals. Deep focus over a long period of time creates lasting results. Those who can tolerate solitude understand that great achievements don't come from short bursts of success, but from consistent accumulation day by day. Therefore, they are not discouraged by slow progress because they believe in the process. Another important point is that people accustomed to solitude often possess a high degree of self-discipline. Even without supervision, they still do what needs to be done. They don't wait for external pressure to act. Personal discipline is a clear manifestation of perseverance. Disciplined individuals will continue working, even when their mood is unfavorable. They understand that emotions can change, but goals require stability. Solitude also helps people build self-confidence. When they overcome difficulties repeatedly without constant help, they realize they are capable of continuing. This belief creates a quiet but enduring strength. Thanks to this inner belief, they don't easily give up because of a few doubts from the outside. They understand that their value doesn't depend on instant recognition. In long journeys like learning a new skill, building a career, or improving one's health, much of the time is spent in silence. No one sees the hours of practice, the pages read, or the failed experiments. Those who cannot tolerate solitude will find this period overwhelming. But those who accept solitude see it as a necessary stage for accumulation. They don't rush for results because they understand that all achievements take time. Perseverance is also related to the ability to tolerate delays. In today's fast-paced world, people easily lose patience when results aren't immediate. Those who can tolerate solitude tend to accept the natural pace of the process. They aren't pressured by constant comparisons with others. Instead of looking at others' successes and becoming discouraged, they focus on their own progress. This focus helps them maintain long-term motivation. This doesn't mean that those who can tolerate solitude don't need anyone. They still value companionship and collaboration. But the difference lies in the fact that they aren't completely dependent on it. When they have someone by their side, they are grateful and share. When they are alone, they continue to move forward. This flexibility ensures their journey isn't interrupted by circumstances. Many great achievements in history were created by people who endured long periods of quiet, unassuming work. They accepted days when no one understood them, no one supported them. If they had given up simply because of loneliness, perhaps the results would not have materialized. This shows that the ability to endure solitude is not only a personal quality, but also a decisive factor in perseverance over the long term. Solitude, when viewed correctly, is not a lack, but an environment for cultivating inner strength. In solitude, people learn self-motivation, self-discipline, and how to pick themselves up after setbacks. These skills combine to create perseverance. Those who can endure solitude, therefore, tend to have greater resilience in the face of challenges. They are not easily swayed by fleeting emotions and are less likely to give up when attention is lacking. Ultimately, perseverance isn't an innate talent, but the result of long-term training. And solitude is an important part of that process. When you no longer fear the days you have to walk alone, you no longer fear the long road ahead. Each step, however small, will bring you closer to your goal. Those who can endure solitude are therefore often the ones who reach the end of the journey, because they are persistent enough not to stop halfway. 9. Perseverance is the key to long-term success. In life, there are many people who start with great enthusiasm. They have big ideas, clear goals, and strong determination. But over time, when difficulties arise and results don't meet expectations, many people gradually slow down and then stop altogether. The difference between those who achieve lasting success and those who give up halfway often lies not in exceptional talent, but in a quiet yet incredibly important quality: perseverance. Perseverance is not a fleeting effort. It is the ability to continue acting even when motivation wanes, when the environment is unfavorable, and when the outcome's uncertain. Long-term achievements rarely come from a single leap forward. They are usually the result of hundreds, even thousands, of small steps repeated regularly over time. Those who understand this will not be overly eager for early success, nor overly despairing of initial failures. In learning, perseverance helps a person go further than their innate ability. A student may not be outstanding from the start, but if they diligently practice every day, knowledge will gradually accumulate. After a year or two, a gap between a persistent student and one who only studies when they feel like it will become very clear. Knowledge doesn't increase with emotion, but with time and repetition. Perseverance is the bridge between today and the solid capabilities of tomorrow. This is even more evident in the workplace. Building a career is a long journey, not a sprint. Those who achieve lasting success often spend years working quietly, experimenting, making mistakes, and adjusting. They don't give up at the first obstacle. They see difficulties as an inevitable part of the growth process. This attitude is what keeps them going when others are already tired. Perseverance is also closely related to the ability to tolerate delays in results. In today's fast-paced world, people are accustomed to wanting immediate results. But significant values like reputation, professional skills, or the trust of others take time to develop. Without sufficient patience, we will give up when things have only just begun to change. Another important point is that perseverance helps people overcome failure. Failure is not the end, but feedback showing what needs to change. Those lacking perseverance often see failure as proof of their incompetence. Persistent people, on the other hand, see it as data to adjust their methods. Therefore, each setback becomes a step closer to their goal. Perseverance also cultivates discipline. When we commit to doing something for an extended period, we are forced to manage our time, control our emotions, and maintain a steady pace. Discipline not only helps us achieve current goals, but also creates good habits for the future. Someone who is accustomed to maintaining effort will find it easier to start and complete new goals. In relationships, perseverance is demonstrated through long-term sincerity. Friendships, romantic relationships, and partnerships all require time to build trust. If enthusiasm is only initial and then cools down due to misunderstandings, the relationship will be difficult to sustain. Those who know how to patiently listen, adjust, and support each other will create a deeper bond. It's important to note that perseverance is not the same as stubbornness. Perseverance means continuing to pursue a goal, but being willing to change your approach when necessary. Stubbornness means sticking to the same method, even when it's clearly ineffective. This difference is crucial. Long-term success comes from both persistence and flexibility. Successful people not only try hard, but also know how to adjust at the right time. It can be said that talent helps us get started faster, but perseverance helps us go further. Talented people who lack perseverance easily miss opportunities when faced with challenges. People with average abilities, but who persevere, gradually improve themselves. Over time, the gap between the two can be reversed. History and reality show many examples of this. Perseverance also fosters inner confidence. Looking back on the journey, we realize how many difficulties we have overcome. Each time we didn't give up, we strengthened our belief in ourselves. This belief helps us stand firmer in the face of new challenges. Therefore, lasting achievement lies not only in external results, but also in inner growth. However, perseverance doesn't come naturally. It's cultivated through small, daily actions. Start by meeting deadlines, maintaining good habits, and keeping promises to yourself. When we consistently fulfill small commitments, we are building the foundation for bigger goals. Endurance doesn't come from grand promises, but from consistent, repeated action. Ultimately, lasting achievement is the result of accumulation. No one can achieve lasting value overnight. Perseverance helps us stay focused on our goals long enough to see results. It prevents us from being swept away by fleeting emotions or swayed by short-term judgments. When we understand that each day's effort is meaningful, we will no longer be discouraged by slow progress. If you're pursuing a goal and feeling tired, ask yourself if you can take one small step forward today. Don't look too far ahead to the finish line and forget the value of each step. Great achievements aren't built on rare bursts of success, but on persistent effort over time. When you're patient enough to keep going, success will naturally develop. 10. Solitude helps people to be more selective about the relationships that are truly valuable. In the journey of growing up, everyone experiences periods of joy and periods of quiet reflection. When young, many people want to be in a crowd, to connect with many people so they don't feel left behind. However, over time, many realize that the number of relationships doesn't determine the quality of life. What's more important are relationships that truly understand, respect, and support their growth. It is during periods of solitude that people realize this most clearly. Constantly surrounded by crowds, people easily get swept along by the rhythm of life, with little opportunity to reflect on themselves. We meet many people, share many stories, participate in many social events, but sometimes lack the quietude to ask ourselves who truly is a long-term companion. Only when we have time alone can we more closely observe our own emotions after each relationship. Who brings us peace? Who makes us tired? Who truly listens? And who only appears when they need something? This self-awareness cannot be formed amidst noise. It only becomes clear when the mind is sufficiently still. Solitude also helps people reduce their need for external validation. When we constantly need attention from others, we easily cling to unsuitable relationships simply for fear of losing connection. We might accept superficial conversations, insincere promises, or unfair treatment just to avoid being alone. But when we learn to live stably during periods of solitude, we realize that being alone isn't as scary as we imagined. As the fear diminishes, we have the calmness to make choices. We no longer hold on to relationships out of habit, but begin to select those who truly bring positive value. Another great benefit of solitude is the ability to understand one's own standards. When unaffected by the opinions of others, one can ask oneself what one desires in a friendship, a partnership, or a deep emotional connection. Do we need sincerity, respect, or companionship and growth? When these standards are clear, choosing relationships becomes more accurate. We are no longer impressed by superficial appearances or fleeting excitement, but pay more attention to stability and lasting kindness. Solitude also helps people learn to take care of their own emotions instead of relying entirely on others. When we learn to create our own happiness and solve most of our own problems, we no longer seek relationships simply to fill a void. Relationships built on inner fulfillment tend to be more sustainable than those built on inadequacy. When two people meet to share values rather than to be completely dependent, the relationship will be more balanced and respectful. In reality, many people, after a period of solitude, often find that their social circle shrinks, but its quality improves. They have fewer friends, but those friends understand them more deeply. They attend fewer social gatherings, but each one is truly meaningful. This isn't a narrowing of life, but rather a purification. Like a well-maintained garden, when weeds are removed, the truly valuable plants thrive. Solitude also helps us realize who is willing to stay when we no longer provide them with direct benefits. When we are less present at social gatherings and participate less in lively activities, some relationships naturally drift apart. This can be upsetting at first, but in the long run, it helps us see the true nature of each relationship more clearly. Those who remain in touch, still care, and are still willing to support us are the ones worth cherishing. Therefore, solitude doesn't cause us to lose connections, but rather helps us identify true connections. Another important point is that when we're not distracted by too many relationships, we have more time to invest in the people who truly matter. Time spent listening, sharing, and supporting each other becomes more profound. Fewer but lasting relationships often provide a much greater sense of security than knowing many people but lacking connection. People don't need a lot of people who understand them. Just a few who truly understand are enough to create a solid emotional foundation. Many people worry that living alone will make them socially isolated, but this only happens when solitude is accompanied by complete withdrawal. Positive solitude is a period of stepping back to understand oneself, then returning to society with a clearer discernment. People who understand the value of solitude don't reject relationships. They simply choose them more carefully. As a result, the relationships they maintain are often more stable and healthy. Ultimately, solitude isn't something to be avoided, but rather a necessary stage of growth. Through time spent alone, people learn to understand themselves, their true needs, and recognize who is worthy of a long-term relationship. When we no longer fear loneliness, we won't rush into relationships just to fill a void. We'll choose relationships that foster respect, sincerity, and mutual growth. This selective approach makes life lighter, deeper, and more stable over time. 11. People with strong inner strength are not afraid of being misunderstood in the beginning. In life, most people want to be understood as soon as they begin a new action or make a different decision. When their words or choices are not met with approval from others, many people easily feel anxious, even changing direction just to gain acceptance from those around them. However, those with strong inner strength are usually not so hasty. They understand that true values take time to prove, and initial misunderstandings are sometimes just a natural part of the journey of growth. Strong inner strength begins with the ability to clearly understand where one is going and why one has chosen that path. When the goal is clear enough, people will not be easily swayed by fleeting judgments. Others may not yet see their vision, may not understand the reasons behind their decisions, but that will not stop them. They are willing to accept periods of doubt because they know that the final result will be the clearest explanation. In reality, many new paths initially encounter skepticism. When someone begins learning a new skill, changes careers, starts a new project, or lives by principles different from the majority, those around them are often unfamiliar with the change. Differences easily lead to questioning or even misjudgment. If one lacks inner strength, they may feel pressured and quickly revert to their old ways, simply to avoid misunderstanding. Conversely, those with strong inner strength view these reactions as normal, understanding that new things always take time to be accepted. Another important point is that people with strong inner strength don't place their entire self-worth on the opinions of others. They know how to listen to necessary feedback, but they don't let every comment dictate their direction. When they hear criticism, they calmly consider what is right to make adjustments, and what is simply an incomplete perspective, allowing time to provide the answer. As a result, they avoid constantly worrying about what others think while working, maintaining stability in their actions. Time is often the key to resolving misunderstandings. As results gradually appear, as perseverance is proven through continuous action, those who once doubted will begin to reconsider. But it's worth noting that people with strong inner strength don't work just for recognition. They work because they believe the path they are on is meaningful. Recognition, if it comes, is only a secondary outcome, not the primary motivation. Therefore, they don't feel burdened by the weight. Strong inner strength is also demonstrated in the ability to endure feelings of loneliness during a certain period. When going against the crowd, people sometimes have to walk without many companions from the start. This can easily discourage many. But those with strong inner strength understand that every new path begins with few. They accept that quiet period as an inevitable part of the development process. As their value gradually becomes apparent, the right people will naturally appear. One factor that helps people build inner strength is consistency in daily habits. When you do small things each day that align with your goals, your inner confidence will gradually increase. This confidence doesn't come from the praise of others, but from seeing yourself progressing step by step. When inner confidence is strong enough, external misunderstandings are no longer a major source of pressure. They are merely temporary noises on a long journey. People with strong inner strength also understand that not everyone needs to understand them. Each person has different experiences, perspectives, and priorities, so it's rare for everyone to immediately agree. By accepting these differences, they no longer try to explain everything to everyone. They choose to share with those who truly want to listen and let their actions prove the rest over time. This approach saves them energy and allows them to focus more on personal development. Interestingly, those who experienced misunderstanding in the early stages of their lives tend to mature more quickly psychologically. They learn to withstand pressure, distinguish between valuable feedback and subjective opinions, and cultivate perseverance. These experiences build a solid foundation for bigger strides later on. When faced with new challenges, they are less likely to panic because they are accustomed to navigating periods of lack of recognition. However, not being afraid of being misunderstood doesn't mean ignoring all feedback. Inner strength goes hand in hand with clear thinking. Steadfast individuals know how to listen to improve themselves, but they don't lose their way because of a few impatient comments. They maintain a balance between perseverance and learning, thus making their path to development more sustainable. Ultimately, a person's value is not determined by whether they are immediately understood, but by whether they have the perseverance to live up to their beliefs. When inner strength is sufficient, people no longer worry too much about the initial impressions of others. They focus on doing well step by step, improving themselves every day, and letting time prove everything. At some point, misunderstandings will gradually disappear, giving way to respect forged from their unwavering determination and persistence. 12. When they are emotionally stable, they don't need constant validation. Throughout life, most people go through a period where they are very sensitive to the opinions of others. When doing something, we long for praise. When making a new decision, we long for approval. Recognition brings a sense of security, like a sign that we are on the right track. However, as we mature, many realize that constantly relying on external validation leads to fluctuating emotions. We feel happy when praised, discouraged when doubted, and demotivated when ignored. Only when our inner selves are strong enough can we walk steadily without constantly seeking validation. Inner strength begins with understanding one's own worth. When a person knows what they are pursuing, why it matters, and how they are progressing, they don't need others to remind them of their value. They see their progress through daily work, improved skills, and mature thinking. This sense of inner progress becomes a more sustainable source of motivation than any short-term praise. Once accustomed to self-assessing their own development, they no longer worry if their efforts aren't recognized today. A person lacking inner stability often seeks attention as a way to feel meaningful. They may constantly check for feedback, wait for praise, or feel insecure when their efforts aren't immediately recognized. This drains mental energy on observing external reactions instead of focusing on genuine growth. Conversely, those with inner stability understand that many great values take time to be realized. They are willing to work quietly, believing that the final result will be the clearest proof. A strong inner self also helps reduce the pressure of comparison. When constantly seeking validation, we easily look to others to see who receives more praise, who progresses faster, who stands out more. Constant comparison tires the mind and diminishes the joy of self-improvement. People with strong inner strength focus on their own journey. They understand that everyone has different starting points, different circumstances, and different paces of progress. When no longer caught up in comparisons, they can dedicate their full attention to improving themselves step by step. A noticeable characteristic of steadfast individuals is that they don't need to over-explain their decisions. Once they've thought things through and understand the reasoning, they're ready to act without needing to convince everyone. This isn't arrogance, but rather confidence in their own judgment. They still listen to helpful opinions, but don't feel obligated to get approval from everyone before starting. As a result, they can move faster and are less likely to be delayed by waiting. A strong inner self also brings calmness when facing criticism. People who depend on validation often feel uncomfortable or anxious when hearing negative feedback because they see it as a denial of their self-worth. People with strong inner strength see things differently. They separate human value from the results of their actions. When receiving feedback, they consider what is right to adjust and what is inappropriate to disregard. This attitude helps them develop faster because they are not blinded by defensive emotions that hinder their learning opportunities. Another important benefit of inner strength is the ability to persevere. When motivation depends on praise, people only perform well during periods of attention. When attention wanes, motivation decreases. Conversely, when motivation comes from personal goals and inner conviction, one can continue to act even when no one is watching. These quiet steps often produce significant results over time because sustained accumulation is always stronger than short-term bursts of effort. People with inner strength also build healthier relationships. When they don't need constant validation, they don't pressure others to constantly praise or pay attention to them. They approach relationships through sharing and companionship, not through a need for affirmation. This makes relationships more relaxed and balanced. Those around them also feel more comfortable because they don't have to constantly meet overwhelming emotional demands. Building inner strength doesn't happen overnight. It's formed through many small experiences, from fulfilling commitments to oneself, from overcoming difficulties without giving up, from daring to try new things even if success isn't guaranteed. Each time you maintain consistency in your actions, your inner belief is strengthened a little more. Over time, that belief becomes the foundation that helps you become less dependent on external validation. A crucial element in cultivating resilience is learning to accept quiet periods. Effort isn't always immediately apparent. There are times when we work hard, but the results aren't clear, and periods when we make progress, but no one notices. If we only continue when praised, we miss many opportunities to accumulate long-term value. Resilient individuals understand that quiet periods are sometimes the best environment for profound growth, because they can fully concentrate on their training without being distracted by the gaze of others. When people are introspective, they are more likely to make independent decisions. They don't get swept along by trends, simply because they fear being judged differently. They consider information, think thoroughly, and then choose a path that aligns with their values. This helps them build a life with a clearer personal imprint, instead of living according to the constantly changing expectations of others. Independent thinking is the foundation of long-term achievements, because new paths often begin with those who dare to believe in their own decisions. It's noteworthy that when people no longer need constant validation, they often receive more respect. Calmness, stability, and consistency create a sense of trustworthiness. Others see that they aren't acting simply for attention, but because they genuinely believe in what they're doing. This consistency gives their words and actions more weight over time. Ultimately, inner strength brings a very profound form of freedom. It's the freedom not to live according to the fleeting judgments of others, the freedom to continue striving even when no one sees it, the freedom to adjust oneself without feeling rejected. With this foundation, people no longer chase constant recognition to feel valuable. They know that true value is built day by day through action, growth, and sustained contributions. And it is this inner strength that helps them go further, be more stable, and find greater peace on their long journey through life. 13. It is the process of self-discipline in solitude that creates a distinctive character. In life, many people aspire to possess the confidence, composure, and steady demeanor that inspires trust in others from the first encounter. However, such charisma is rarely developed simply through a crowded environment or moments of attention. The majority of individuals with such distinctive charisma have undergone a long period of quiet self-cultivation where they learn to confront themselves, correct their weaknesses, and persistently develop without constant external encouragement. Solitude isn't a lack of connection, but rather a space that allows individuals to see themselves clearly. When not distracted by excessive conversations or opinions, we have the opportunity to observe our thoughts more distinctly. We realize where our strengths lie, which habits are hindering our growth, which goals are truly meaningful, and which are merely following the crowd. This process of self-discovery is the first step in inner training. Those who don't dare confront themselves often struggle to make profound changes, while those who accept a period of solitude gradually build a solid foundation for growth. During periods of solitary training, individuals learn discipline. Without reminders or pressure to impress others, all actions depend on self-awareness. Maintaining a daily reading habit, exercising, learning new skills, or persevering through long-term tasks all become tests of endurance. Each time a small commitment is fulfilled, inner confidence is strengthened. Over time, this discipline creates a stable demeanor, making individuals less susceptible to changing circumstances. This stability is a crucial part of character. Solitude also helps people cultivate independent thinking. When not constantly influenced by others' opinions, we are forced to analyze problems, make decisions, and take responsibility for our choices. This process is sometimes difficult because no one can guarantee we are on the right track. But it is this constant experimentation and adjustment that deepens our thinking. People accustomed to independent thinking tend to have a calm perspective and are not easily swayed by collective emotions. When in crowded environments, they maintain their composure and are able to make more sound decisions. This creates a clear difference in their demeanor. Another crucial aspect of training in solitude is the ability to tolerate delays in results. When working quietly for extended periods, one cannot expect immediate recognition. One must accept that many efforts today will only yield results after months or years. This acceptance helps develop patience. Patient people often have a calmer gaze, more confident speech, and less hasty actions. The composed demeanor that many admire is actually formed through the process of waiting and continuing to strive, even without seeing results. In solitude, people also learn to manage their emotions. When there aren't many people around to share with immediately, we must observe our own emotions, understand why we are sad or worried, and find ways to adjust. This process helps improve our ability to self-regulate our emotions. People who know how to stabilize their moods often give off a trustworthy impression because they don't easily react impulsively to unexpected situations. This calmness is part of a character trait that cannot be learned through advice alone. It must be cultivated through real-life experience. Many believe that temperament is innate, but in reality, it is largely formed through years of self-cultivation. When a person perseveres in quiet study, works diligently even without attention, and consistently adjusts their daily habits, the entire process gradually creates inner maturity. This maturity is not flashy, but is clearly evident in their gaze, speech, and handling of situations. Those who have undergone profound self-cultivation often don't need to show off. Their calmness alone is enough to make a distinct impression. The process of self-cultivation in solitude also helps people understand the value of quality relationships. Once accustomed to standing alone, we no longer seek relationships merely to fill a void. We begin to choose people who are truly compatible, who respect our values and are committed to long-term growth. As a result, relationships become deeper, no longer based on fleeting needs. People with a streamlined but high-quality circle of relationships often exude natural confidence and stability. It's worth noting that a distinctive character isn't formed in a short time. It's the result of years of accumulating good habits, overcoming feelings of wanting to give up, and many periods of quiet effort that few people see. Understanding this, we will no longer rush to find quick changes, but focus on improving in small steps each day. It is these small, repeated, and persistent steps that create a big difference over time. Ultimately, solitude is not something to be avoided, but rather a necessary stage in the journey of growth. Those who know how to utilize their time alone to learn, train, and adjust themselves will gradually develop a stable, calm, and reliable demeanor. When they step out into the world, they don't need to try too hard to show off, because their inner strength naturally radiates through their actions and words. And it is this quiet process of self-cultivation that creates the profound difference between those who only seek attention and those who truly build lasting value. 14. Therefore, the ancients believed that those who dared to live in solitude often had noble destinies. In ancient beliefs, a noble destiny was not merely about wealth or high status, but about a life of depth, self-reliance, and the ability to create lasting value for oneself and others. These qualities are rarely formed through continuous favorable circumstances, but are often honed during quiet periods when individuals must confront themselves. Therefore, the ancients believed that those who could endure solitude, who knew how to utilize time alone for self-improvement and growth, often had a solid foundation for achieving greater success in the future. Solitude helps people detach themselves from the noise of their surroundings to see their own path more clearly. When always living in a crowd, people are easily swept along by common desires, acting according to collective habits without questioning what truly suits them. But when alone, they have time to think more deeply about their goals, their abilities, and what needs to change. This clarity is like reorienting a ship before setting sail. People with clear direction usually don't waste time on unnecessary paths, so each step becomes more certain. Those who dare to be alone often develop a higher level of discipline. Without supervision or encouragement, all actions depend on self-awareness. Maintaining steady habits, exercising, working according to schedule, or pursuing long-term goals all require self-management. Those who overcome this phase build a solid foundation of discipline. Discipline is not a temporary compulsion, but the ability to maintain correct actions, even without strong motivation. People with consistent discipline tend to go further than those who only act when inspired. Another reason why ancient people valued those who dared to live in solitude was that they often developed independent thinking. When not heavily influenced by others' opinions, individuals are forced to analyze information independently and take responsibility for their own choices. This process deepens their thinking abilities. Independent thinkers are not easily swayed by short-term trends. They weigh the long-term pros and cons before making decisions. This clear-headedness helps them avoid major mistakes and maintain stability during turbulent times. Solitude also helps people cultivate patience. Many great achievements don't come immediately, but require a long process of accumulation. When working in silence without seeing results, impatient people are prone to giving up or constantly changing direction. Those accustomed to solitude understand that slow progress doesn't mean no progress at all. They continue to act in small steps, allowing time to become their ally. This perseverance creates a great advantage, because after many years of accumulation, the gap between the persistent and the easily discouraged becomes very clear. Furthermore, spending time alone helps people understand the true value of genuine relationships. When no longer dependent on crowds for security, we begin to choose companions based on sincerity and mutual respect. Relationships become more streamlined yet profound. People with a quality circle of relationships tend to receive more lasting support in life. This is also a form of good fortune that the ancients often referred to when discussing a noble destiny. Another important factor is the ability to self-regulate emotions. When experiencing periods of solitude, people learn to observe their own moods and adjust without relying entirely on external comfort. This ability helps them remain calmer under pressure, react less impulsively, and maintain stability in their decisions. Those who maintain composure often project an image of trustworthiness, making them more likely to gain credibility at work and in important relationships. Ancient wisdom holds that a noble destiny is not something that comes naturally, but rather the result of long-term cultivation. Those who are not afraid of solitude often have more time to learn, think, and improve themselves. While others are busy chasing after the hustle and bustle, they quietly accumulate their abilities. When opportunities arise, they are well prepared to seize them. Therefore, from the outside, they may appear to achieve rapid success, but in reality, it is the result of many years of silent effort. Solitude also teaches people how to not depend on constant validation. When self-worth is built from inner strength, we don't need to constantly prove ourselves to those around us. This self-confidence is not loud, but very solid. People with strong inner strength tend to walk slowly, but surely. They are not swayed by temporary praise or criticism. This stability makes it easier for them to achieve lasting success. However, the ancients did not encourage complete isolation from society. What was emphasized was the ability to stand firm during periods of solitude. Having matured through this process, individuals return to the community with greater wisdom, knowing how to choose the right companions and making more practical contributions. Thus, solitude is not the destination, but a necessary training phase on the journey of development. Therefore, the saying that those who dare to be alone often have a noble destiny is not mystical in meaning, but reflects a very practical psychological principle. Those who know how to utilize their time alone to cultivate discipline, develop independent thinking, accumulate skills, and understand themselves will create a solid foundation for the future. When the foundation is strong enough, opportunities are easier to seize and challenges are easier to overcome. And it is this quiet preparation that gradually opens up many better paths in their lives, what the ancients called a noble destiny. Solitude is not a disadvantage. It can be a preparatory stage for a major life move. In life, no one can avoid periods of solitude. Sometimes it's a career transition, when you temporarily leave your familiar environment to start anew. Other times, it's when relationships change, forcing you to learn to balance your emotions without the companionship you once had. These moments can easily leave people feeling empty and doubting themselves. However, looking deeper, solitude can be the necessary space to prepare for a bigger step forward. When you're alone, you have the opportunity to reflect on your entire journey. You realize what you truly desire and what is merely external pressure. Silence allows for clearer thinking, helping you distinguish between long-term goals and fleeting emotions. This is a time to adjust your direction, strengthen your skills, and build inner resilience without being distracted by excessive noise. Solitude also cultivates patience and discipline. When no one motivates you, you are forced to create your own motivation. When no one gives immediate recognition, you learn to believe in the process. Those quiet days of effort, even without visible results, lay the solid foundation for future achievements. Any major breakthrough requires a thorough preparation period. Without that preparation, early success is difficult to sustain in the long run. More importantly, when you're strong enough to walk alone, you'll no longer be overly dependent on constant recognition. You understand that your value lies not in the number of compliments you receive, but in genuine progress each day. This inner strength creates a distinctive demeanor. People with stable inner strength are usually calmer in the face of difficulties, more insightful in their decisions, and more persistent in their actions. It is this very quality that makes their value evident over time. So, if you're going through a period of solitude, don't immediately see it as a disadvantage. Perhaps this is a necessary pause before life opens a new door. Use this time to learn, to improve, and to understand yourself more deeply. If you're on that journey, please share your thoughts in the comments below so we can reflect together and motivate each other on our path to growth.